All right, get ready. Over a century of movie history, all in one go, just for you. We're going deep. From those very first flickering images to the crazy CGI blockbusters we see today.
We won't just be skimming the surface either. No way, we're going behind the scenes, uncovering some of the fascinating facts along the way and connecting it all back to, well, us.
Right, to how film has reflected society over time.
Exactly.
And to help guide us on this wild ride through cinema, we're checking out the Real Talk podcast. I listen to it, and it's super fun and very informative.
It's like listening in on two film buffs, just, geeking out about movies, which actually is perfect for our deep dive because their enthusiasm it's contagious. They make even the complicated stuff easy to grasp.
They really do. And they start right at the beginning with the pioneers, the folks who were racing to invent the tech that made it all possible. Now, Edison's kinetoscope, it was innovative, sure, but can you imagine having to watch films one at a time?
Like a personal peep show.
Like a personal peep show, exactly.
It was the Lumiere brothers who really, they brought cinema to everyone, to the masses.
Right, with their, what was it called?
The cinematograph.
Cinematograph.
In 1895. Now, this invention, this is the one that could not only record, but also project film.
And that meant?
That meant people could finally experience moving pictures together, all at the same time.
For the first time ever.
Exactly.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Now, these very first films, they were simple, right? Everyday scenes.
Workers leaving a factory, a baby getting fed, that kind of thing.
Kind of like the cat videos of their day.
Uh-huh, exactly.
But still, can you imagine that feeling of awe, seeing motion captured and projected?
It must have just blown people's minds.
Totally. And then it wasn't long before filmmakers began experimenting with narrative.
Like Georges Méliès, for example.
Right.
He used special effects in his 1902 film, A Trip to the Moon, to tell a fantastical story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That image of the rocket smashing into the moon's eye, you know that one?
Oh, yeah, it's iconic.
Pure imaginator.
Wow, he was way ahead of his time, pushing the boundaries of what film could even be. It's amazing to think about those early visionaries.
Well, absolutely. And Real Talk makes a great point about how those early pioneers, they were not only inventors, but artists. They realized quickly that that film was much more than just capturing what was real.
It was a new medium for storytelling.
Exactly. And then there's Edwin S. Porter, his film, The Great Train Robbery, 1903. He revolutionized editing.
Oh, right. So like how films cut back and forth between scenes to build that suspense, he pioneered that.
He did. And we're still using those techniques today. It's amazing.
It's so cool how those early innovations, they're still influencing filmmaking over a century later. Speaks to how ingenious these filmmakers were and their lasting impact, for sure.
Absolutely.
And the pace, it's crazy how quickly everything developed. From those simple moving pictures to complex stories with editing, all within just a few years.
And then, bam, we hit the silent era.
Decades long.
Decades. And anything but silent.
Right. This was the time of legends.
Oh, yeah. Legends like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. Masters of physical comedy, conveying emotion, telling stories, all without saying a single word.
I've seen some of those films. It's incredible the way they use their bodies, their facial expression. Can you imagine seeing them on the big screen with a live orchestra even?
It must have been, such a unique experience. That blend of visual and auditory storytelling. You don't see that anymore today.
Yeah, Real Talk, they really emphasized how important that musical accompaniment was, added a whole other dimension to the experience. It's a good reminder that, sometimes those limitations, they force you to be more creative. And sometimes it makes the experience even richer, don't you think?
Absolutely. The silent era was a period of immense artistic innovation in its own right, for sure. It wasn't just waiting for sound to come along.
Right, exactly. And then sound arrived. And everything changed. Real Talk points to The Jazz Singer in 1927 as the first talkie. But wasn't it only partially a talking film?
You're right. It wasn't all talking. The Jazz Singer is often credited as the first talkie because it was such a huge commercial success.
Right.
But there were actually earlier examples of synchronized sound in film.
So what made The Jazz Singer so important then?
What it did was it really popularized sound. And showed everyone its potential for storytelling.
So it may not have been the first, but it was definitely a turning point, a game changer.
Absolutely.
So dialogue, music, sound effects, all of a sudden they're essential parts of filmmaking.
Adding layers of depth and realism that just weren't possible before. Imagine sitting in a movie theater and hearing voices, sounds, coming from the screen for the very first time.
It would have been incredible.
Completely revolutionized the way audiences experienced film.
And it paved the way for new genres to emerge, like musicals.
Oh.
Wow, it's hard to believe there was ever a time when there wasn't sound in films. And speaking of game changers, Real Talk also highlighted The Wizard of Oz as this landmark film for color. That transition, you know, the one from that sepia-toned Kansas to the vibrant land of Oz.
Iconic.
So iconic.
And more than just visually stunning, the use of color in that film, it was really a storytelling device. It really emphasized that contrast between Dorothy's very ordinary world and the fantastical realm that she enters.
So we have motion pictures, sound, color. Each of these innovations just completely transformed what it meant to experience a film. And it all happened so quickly, relatively speaking.
It's a testament to how fast technology was advancing back then and how filmmakers embraced those advancements to push the boundaries of their art.
It really is. From simple, like we said, cat videos to the Technicolor wonder of Oz, it was evolving at an incredible pace. But what about those powerful studios we always hear about? Weren't the 1930s and 40s considered like Hollywood's golden age?
They were. And Real Talk dives into that studio system that defined the era. Major studios, MGM, Warner Bros., churning out film after film.
Right, like Casablanca, Gone with the Wind,
Yes.
with these huge stars and iconic stories, shaping whole genres even.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology then. It's a whole system. The actors, the directors, the studios themselves, all working together. And it created this incredibly influential period in film history.
So the golden age, it's also about the behind-the-scenes stuff, like its own drama.
It is. It was a time of artistic brilliance, but also, the studio heads had this tight control over everything.
Right, influencing what got made, who starred in what.
Exactly.
Wow. But that tight grip, it started to loosen in the post-war era, right?
Right. And Real Talk points to a new challenge, a new arrival on the scene.
Right.
Television.
Oh, yeah.
TV was a real shakeup for the studio system.
Yeah.
Hollywood had to adapt, had to innovate if it wanted to stay relevant.
So what happened? How did filmmaking change?
Well, one thing was we saw the rise of these auteur directors in the 60s and 70s.
Auteur directors.
These were filmmakers like Alfred Hitchcock, Stanley Kubrick, Francis Ford Coppola. They all had these strong personal visions, and they really pushed the boundaries of cinematic storytelling.
So instead of just being told what to do by the studios, they had more freedom to express themselves.
Exactly. And we also see this surge of new genres, reflecting all the cultural shifts and social changes happening at the time. We see the gritty realism of the 70s crime dramas, but also the blockbuster spectacle of Star Wars.
Star Wars, that was more than just a movie. It was a phenomenon. It changed the way we thought about special effects, and it set the stage for all those huge blockbuster franchises we see today.
Okay, like Indiana Jones and
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
Exactly. And then we get to CGI.
Computer-generated imagery in the late 20th and early 21st centuries revolutionized special effects.
They had possible to create visuals that were once, unthinkable.
Exactly. Think about superhero movies with their crazy stunts or those fantasy epics with all those fantastical creatures. It's mind-blowing to compare those visuals to the early days of cinema when just capturing basic movement was this revolutionary feat.
It really is. From those grainy black and white images to immersive virtual worlds. But with virtual reality emerging, with all the streaming services, who knows what's next?
That's what's so exciting. We've covered a century of film, but the story's still going.
It is. It's exciting. What are your thoughts? Where do things go from here?
A fascinating time. It really is. I mean, think about it. We started with those grainy black and white images, and now we're talking, about these immersive worlds, virtual worlds, and experiences that are tailored to you.
It's kind of wild to think about. And, all this new tech is really cool, of course. But I keep thinking back to something Real Talk talked about, how cinema reflects who we are, as a society.
Oh, that's such a crucial point. Think about the golden age of Hollywood. Those glamorous films, they offered escapism during some pretty tough times.
During the Depression, World War II.
Exactly. Reflecting, really, a longing for hope, for better times.
And in the post-war era, society was grappling with so much change, so much unrest. And that's when we saw those auteur directors pushing those boundaries, reflecting those anxieties, questioning the norms through their films.
Exactly. Cinema, it's not just entertainment. It's a mirror. It reflects our hopes, our fears, our dreams, all of it.
So As we look ahead to the future of film, it's not just about the technology, it's about understanding the culture and how that will shape the stories that get told on screen. What trends do you see influencing the future of film?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is the blurring of the lines
Mm,
between film and television and gaming.
right.
You see it in those interactive films where you can make choices, right?
Yeah.
And those choices affect the story, or video games that have these cinematic narratives that could rival a blockbuster movie.
Oh, I love those choose your own adventure style films.
Yeah.
Like you get to be the director, to make those tough calls yourself. Do you think that's the future, this interactivity?
It's definitely a possibility. This kind of storytelling, it really challenges the idea of being a passive viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Audiences become active participants. They're co-creating the
But
experience.
that opens up all kinds of creative possibilities, doesn't it?
It does. And it's funny how things come full circle in a way.
How so?
Well, we started with these communal screenings, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone experienced the magic of film together.
Hmm.
And now we're moving towards these more individualized interactive experiences. But even those, they still manage to connect us, just in new ways.
We do. And we can't forget about AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Imagine AI algorithms helping to craft storylines, to create like realistic characters even, or even tailoring a film to each viewer's preferences.
That's the thing with AI, right? It's exciting, but it's also, well, a little bit scary.
It is. Will it enhance creativity, or could it replace human artistry?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's a discussion we need to have as this technology evolves.
Yeah.
For me personally, I believe that human element, that spark of creativity, the emotional connection, that's always going to be essential to good storytelling, to really great storytelling.
I agree. No matter how advanced technology gets, it's those human stories, the emotions, the shared moments, the laughter, the tears, the wonder. That's what connects with us
Yeah.
on a deeper level. Something's been on my mind though throughout this whole deep dive. Something Real Talk didn't really get into, but it feels connected somehow.
I'm all ears. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, we've talked so much about the evolution of cinema through technology, but what about the basic principles of storytelling? Have those really changed over time?
That's a really interesting point. At their core, stories, they're about human experiences, right?
Yeah.
Conflict, resolution, love, loss, the whole range of human emotions. And those themes have been explored in stories for centuries, long before the movie camera even existed.
Right, like the classic hero's journey. We see it in ancient myths, we see it in Shakespeare, and we see it in today's superhero blockbusters.
Exactly. The structure, the archetypes, the symbolism, they just transcend time and medium.
It makes you wonder, as we look to the future of film, what new forms of storytelling might emerge, and how will they draw on both the cutting edge technology, but also those age old techniques.
It's a really exciting question. This deep dive has really been a journey through the history of film, but also through technology, through culture, and through that constant desire to tell stories that really resonate.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I'm curious, are there any hints in the current trends in the emerging technologies that suggest what these new forms of storytelling might look like?
Well, we were just talking about those lines getting blurry between film and TV and gaming. I think that's a big clue, actually.
Yeah, those interactive films where you can make choices
Yeah.
that affect the story. That's a whole new way of engaging with a film, isn't it?
It is. It's like evolution. The evolution of storytelling is taking us back to those ancient, those campfire tales, where the audience could shout suggestions or change the story even.
Right. It becomes a shared, like a collaborative thing. Breaks down that wall, between the creator and the audience.
And think about all the advances in VR, in virtual reality.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Imagine putting on a headset and you're transported into the world of the film. You're not just watching anymore, you're experiencing it. You're right there with the characters.
That would be amazing. Like stepping into your favorite novel or becoming a character in a video game.
Exactly. And the potential for storytelling in VR is just, it's huge. It's immense. Think about recreating historical events. You could walk through ancient Rome or experience these big moments in history.
Yeah.
Or sci-fi epics. Imagine exploring, exploring distant planets, interacting with aliens.
Wow, it would be so immersive,
Right?
engaging all your senses. But it also raises a lot of questions, doesn't it? Like how do you even create a narrative in a 360-degree space?
Yeah.
Or how do you direct the viewer's attention without taking away their freedom to explore?
These are all creative challenges that filmmakers are already, they're already working with this. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see how they're pushing the boundaries. And then of course you have augmented reality, AR, where you have these digital elements that are layered on top of the real world. So imagine watching a film and the characters or objects from the film are interacting with your living room.
That would be crazy. But with all this tech coming out, it makes you wonder, will traditional cinema even still exist? I mean, will movie theaters even be a thing?
A lot of people are asking that,
Yeah.
and it's tough. It's tough to say for sure, of course, but I think it's important to remember that each new technology doesn't necessarily replace the old one.
Right.
Think about radio. It didn't just go away when TV came along.
Right. It adapted.
It adapted, exactly, found a new space for itself.
And people
Uh,
still go to concerts even though they could just stream the music at home. There's something about that shared experience, that energy, that collective energy being part of an audience.
Exactly, and I think the same thing will happen with cinema. I think there will always be a place for that shared experience of watching a film on a big screen
Uh-huh.
with other people who are sharing that same moment with you. But it's exciting to think about how all these new technologies will expand filmmaking,
Sure.
create new ways to tell stories, to connect with people, to connect with audiences.
It is, and it brings us back to that discussion about AI, about its potential role in film. Do you think AI could ever create a story that is truly original and moving? Or is that something that only humans can do?
That's a question that I think philosophers, artists, they'll be debating that for years to come.
Yeah.
And even if AI gets to a point, becomes so sophisticated that it can generate stories, it can analyze all this data, predict what audiences want, what audiences like. I still think that human element, that's key.
And why is that?
Because stories at their heart, they're about us. They're about the human experience. It's about emotions. It's about relationships. It's about these universal themes that connect us all. And
Mhm.
and while AI, it might be able to mimic those things, I don't think it can really truly replicate the depth, the complexity of human creativity, of empathy, of understanding.
That makes sense because in the end, it's human filmmakers who are programming those algorithms, right?
Right.
Who are feeding them the data that they use to learn and to create. So AI is still an extension of human creativity in a way, not a replacement.
Exactly. And that's why I'm excited about the future of film. I'm not afraid of it. I think these new technologies, they're going to give filmmakers these incredible tools to tell stories in ways we can't even imagine yet. It's a whole new world, really ready for exploration, for innovation.
This whole deep dive, this whole conversation has been a journey from those grainy silent films to the possibility of these immersive virtual worlds. It's amazing to see how far cinema has come and to think about what's next,
Yeah.
all the
It
possibilities.
really has. And as we wrap up here, I hope you, listener, are feeling that same sense of wonder, of excitement about the magic of cinema, the
Uh,
history. It's rich, it's fascinating, and the future. Well, the future is full of potential.
it is. So as we finish up here, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from this conversation?
Keep exploring, keep watching, keep questioning. Cinema it's alive. It's an art form that's constantly changing, constantly evolving. Don't be afraid to dive into the unfamiliar, to embrace new experiences, and just let that power of storytelling, let it transport you to new worlds, to new perspectives.
That's a perfect note to end on. It's been a real pleasure exploring the world of cinema with you.
The pleasure was all mine.
Yeah.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.